Hello sir, very good morning to you. My name is Satisharan. Our topic is about privatization policy in Malaysia. I'm actually going to talk about introduction and also conclusion. So about the privatization policy, it was actually launched in Malaysia around 1980. So the main objective of implementing this policy is actually to encourage the cooperation between the public and also the private sectors. So actually, according to the initial plan, the private sector was actually responsible for commercial activities, but while the public sector was aimed to provide support to the private sector through different policies. So it is actually assumed that privatization would bring investment, greater investment, and also and can enhance the economic status in our nation. So our objective of privatization is actually to uh, reduce the financial burden, and number two is to improve the efficiency and productivity. Number three is to facilitate the economic growth, and number four is to reduce the size of public sector, and then number five is to meet the economic target. Okay, to achieve that economic target. So now let's move on to the next slides. So the main aim is actually to reduce the governmental spending, right, or expenditure. So because of that, our since our goal is about privatization, so it is expected that this would benefit the government due to higher effectiveness of the private sector, like for example communication sector, communication sector and energy sector, which can be referred to as public enterprise. So so in order to run this, uh, this require a great expenditure to for good outcome or to maintain them. So because of that, privatization policy was implemented, so they can handle this sort of thing. So because of their higher effectiveness, so now our project is mainly about privatization policy. So we actually take into three main issues into account. One is to strengthen the regulatory authority to and also to protect the consumer interests. And number two is to enhance the Bumiputra participation through vendor scheme and provision of better access to the capital. And number three is to promote wider public participation in privatized entities uh, through the public listings. Hello sir, so now moving on to the conclusion part now. Tenaga Nasional Berhad was the first company to be privatized in the energy sector. So privatization has changed the business model of TNB overall. Instead of vertically integrated entity which involve all the process from generation of energy to billing activities, the company was transformed into a more progressive model. So since privatization of TNB significantly improved customer service, and they also reduce the governmental burden on the energy sector. And then the second example, Telecom Malaysia. After the privatization, they become the monopolies in the telecommunication industry. However, accept the leading position on Malaysia market, the company reached leading position on the whole Asian market. Except for fixed line telecom market, TM expanded its performance through acquisition that can be rarely met among public entities. But still, this okay overall. The privatization of MAS is the latest privatization project, which was among mentioned in this one. So deterioration of MAS performance began when in March 2014, Flight 370 disappeared without a trace while en route to Beijing from the Kuala Lumpur. So mass transfer to private ownership provided the carrier with increased flexibility through the restructuring plan. So it has been successful now, so it's going on successfully. So now in general, now we know that Malaysia privatization program may be considered as successful privatization experience. That's all from us. Thank you very much. Now I would like to end the presentation.
Hello, I'll be talking about privatization policy in Malaysia. Basically, I'll be discussing and analyzing privatization policy metrics in Malaysia. First of all, I'd like to introduce the main modes of implementation of privatization in Malaysia, which are sales of assets or equity, lease of assets, management contract, build, operate, transfer, build, operator on for new infrastructure, and build, transfer, which is known as BT. Uh, this This diagram represents is basically the step-by-step how privatization is done in Malaysia, from public sectors to privatized sectors. Some arguments for privatization policy in Malaysia can reduce financial or administrative burden of the government, promote competition, improve efficiency, and increase productivity. It can stimulate private entrepreneurship and investment, reduce the presence and size of the public sectors with its monopolistic tendency and the bureaucracy support, and they also help to achieve NAP or NDP objectives. Strong commitment in the right approach, adoption of new administrative procedures, systematic and coordinated policy implementation, general acceptance by Malaysian public to effective communication, private sector capacity, enthusiastic support. Implementation issues can increase in tariff rates or service charge, regulatory system, Brahmaputra participation, legislation amended or new, greater transparency, economic downturn. Okay, thank you. That's all for me.
So hello everyone, my name is Mohammed Shakib Rusman. Today I would like to share with you the political economy analysis that we just did. When we talk about the political economy analysis, we always talk about the impact from the policy itself. So our policy is the privatization policy. So in terms of political effect, it helped to reduce the government expenditure in 1994 about 4.8 billion ringgit. They also reduce the burden of the government. Next, I will talk about the effect in terms of community. From this policy, it has increased the participation for Bumiputra communities. In 1985, the participation for Bumiputra is only 29.52%, but it has increased to the 41.23% in the corporate sector. Next, I will talk about the impact on the economy. As the privatization policy started, it has increased the number of efficiency in the public sector, as the public sector now not locked up with the government itself. So that is from for me. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Ray. So today I'm going to talk about the stakeholder analysis matrix that I've done. So the first initiative is strengthening the regulatory authorities to protect consumer interests and foster the healthy development of a privatized sector. So the stakeholder for this is MCMC, which is Malaysia Communications and Multimedia Commissions, and CMA 1998 and NTP. So the two that play a major role is MCMC and CMA 1998, and while the NTP has a medium impact and influence. For the second initiative, enhancing Bumiputra's participation, also have three stakeholders. First one is NDP, second one is government, and the last one is vendor development program. NDP and government played a major role in enhancing the Bumiputra's participation, and while the vendor development program plays a so-so role in the initiative. Okay, so the last initiative is promoting wider participation in privatized entities through public listing. This one we have two stakeholders. First one is KLSE, and the second one is government. Both of them played a major role and have a major impact on this initiative.
Assalamualaikum, I'm Shami Ahmad, and I'm here to present to you about the qualitative and the quantitative analysis. About this analysis, it's actually covered up in 6 aspects, which is what, when, where, why, whom, and how. So for this particular 2 minutes of video, I'm going to cover up about one aspect only, which is how. How we're going to execute these 3 issues that proposed by the privatization policy. So the first issue is we have strengthening the regulatory authorities, or we call it a commission that monitoring and evaluating the privatized entity from the government for our benefit actually. So to make this thing happen, we have to, government has had the legislative support in order to widen their authorities, their power to monitorize this entity. So for the next issue we got is by enhancing the Bumiputra participation. So there's 2 steps I want to propose here about how to increase the participation of the Malay or Bumiputra, which is by the vendor development program. It's actually like a training program and encouragement of the government for the small and medium entrepreneur of Bumiputra to make a degree of relationship business with the privatized entities. That's it. So the second step to achieve this goal is by contract work. Yes, the government has also already set up the limits for the every privatized entities that they have to award. They have to award 30% at least the contract work to Bumiputras. That's the rule they've made, and the privatization company have to follow. So the final issue that we cover here is promoting wider participation of Bumiputras by public listing. As you know, public listing is actually any companies that open their share to the public or general public at, let's say, Wall Street or Kuala Lumpur Stock Exchange (KLSE). So by adding a lot of companies that open their share to the public, it gives opportunity to major people like Bumiputras to invest their money inside this privatized entity. And also, then of course, these private entities contain several amount of percentage of the government share. That's a good news for our government money. So the second, by listing the infrastructure project companies, IPC, which is have a good, really good performance for the market, and thus it provide a wider market capitalized at the KLSE, and thus it bring more benefit and more return to the investors, especially public investors like Bumiputras. So that's all from me. Thank you.